In a world where Africans have lost their roots, it has become of vital importance to document our ways. In an effort to reverse the brainwashing of the past, where we were made to believe our ways are demonic, we are pressed to create dignified and respectful platforms to unpack our spiritual ways. Moya, light, Moya, bright. Welcome back to another episode of Moya. Guys, thank you so much for all your love and support. The channel is growing. It's exciting times. And thank you for all the feedback you're giving us about the content you're getting. Please always check the description box, guys. All the questions you ask me in the comment section are usually answered in the description box. Please do like, share, and subscribe so that the channel can get bigger and bigger. You guys asked for part 2, and we had to bring him back because last time we were a bit uncomfortable with some of the things he said. So he said, Gogo Aubrey Matshiqi, come back. Usiphathe kabi last time, wathi sifana nabelungu thina. Thokoza mntu omdala, welcome.
Thokozani mamia nenkonde kazohamba nazo. Shalom, namaste, salam alaikum. Hare Krishna.
As I say, in the last episode, in the comment section, everyone loves you, but there's a comment that keeps coming up, which is, guys, why did he say that we are the same as white people? When you said we are all African, as much as we know that we all come from the motherland and we are the first people, but when you say that we are all African, we kind of feel as if you're absolving Abelungu of the damage that they've done to Umdomnyama. So that was difficult. So we thought we need to bring you back.
Well, let me start by saying, Gyakolis, the Koshal Begil. Maybe I should start here and make those who are watching aware of what informs how I engage with these matters. There is a saying about the baobab tree, and they say you cannot hug a baobab tree alone. The trunk of a baobab tree is huge. So if you want to hug it, you will need the help of others, other arms, the arms of other people. It's only when you are in a circle with others that all of you will be able to hug a baobab tree. In short, you can't do it alone. But it also means when it comes to ideas, spiritual and otherwise, you must never think yours is the only idea worth listening to, or yours is the only idea that is correct. So we are always looking at an elephant. So whatever topic I tackle, I am always looking at an elephant. So I am looking at the eye of this elephant. Someone from a different angle is looking at the ear of this elephant. Someone is looking at the trunk of the elephant. Someone is looking at a hind leg. Someone is looking at a foreleg. But what we tend to do, we pretend we are seeing the entire elephant when we're not. So that I'm looking at the leg of an elephant, does not mean I'm looking at the whole elephant. If we must have sight of the entire elephant, it is because you will tell me about the eye, someone about the hind leg, someone about the trunk, someone about the ear. And when we put all of that together, we have the whole elephant. That's the only way in which we see the whole elephant, when we see it together, by together putting on the table what we see. But I find that in these conversations, people pretend they're looking at the entire elephant. But it's never the case. So even when I say to you, all 8 billion of us are African because all 8 billion of us have common ancestors from this continent. I am looking at the eye of an elephant, or maybe the ear, or maybe one of the legs. I am not going to pretend I am talking about the entire elephant because I cannot see the whole elephant. So I am talking to you about the part of the elephant that I see. So yes, there was some trauma last time when I argued that all 8 billion of us are African. But there's something else I do, Mamia. I always invite people, and I'm going to make the same invitation now. We must free ourselves from the known. Because what I find is that people are slaves to the known. They've become too attached to what they know and prevent themselves from knowing something else because they've become attached too much to what they know. So my invitation today is that we must free ourselves from the known. And what that means is that once something becomes the known, the journey of freeing yourself from that known begins. And something new becomes the known. And when that too becomes the known, the journey begins to free yourself from that known. So freeing ourselves from the known is a continuous or even eternal process. Of course, you can't free yourself from that which you don't know. In other words, I'm not asking you to discard what you know. I'm simply saying free yourself from that to create room for yourself to know something new. So I'm not asking you to discard the known. Because if you discard the known, you then engage in a journey where you free yourself from the unknown. Because once it is discarded, it becomes the unknown. So we can only free ourselves from that which we know. And because we engage with knowledge, with ideas, through words, what we must appreciate is that words are not what they describe. The word stone is not a stone. The word flower is not a flower. The word African is not an African. The word Africa is not Africa. So words are not what they describe. And that is why, for instance, to illustrate this point, if you have 3 people here in front of us, and I say the word stone, in their mind, do they have the same stone? No. They have 3 stones. Each one has his or her own idea of a stone. And the colors of these stones are not the same. The color and the shapes of these stones are not the same. So the word stone is not a stone because words are not what they describe. And that's why you must not attach yourself to a religion, to a country, to a continent, to a person, to ideas. Because in front of you are people who, when you utter something, if there are 4 of them, in their minds, there are 4 different things represented of what you have uttered. So I'm warning against something else, the dangers of attachment. We must not become attached. So part of the trauma the people who were watching the last episode experienced because of what I said is because they've become too attached to what they believe Africa is, to what they believe an African is, and so on. And of course, the opposite of attachment is not detachment. The opposite of attachment is freedom, bringing me back to this idea of freeing ourselves from the known. So don't become attached to your partner. Don't become attached to your house, to your car, to your religion, to ideas, to your soccer club, to the country, to a nation. Don't become attached to the idea that you are Zulu, for instance. Don't become attached to the idea that you are a Christian, to the idea that you are Sangom, to the idea that you are black, to the idea that you are African. Don't become attached. Attachment is dangerous. And attachment robs us of the opportunity to learn something new and to become more than what we are at the moment. And then lastly, on this point, another invitation, you must not have gurus. You must not have gurus. No one is your guru. Your pastor is not your guru. Your teacher is not your guru. I am not your guru, and I'm not interested in being your guru. No one is your guru. You must have no gurus. To the extent that you agree with the ideas of someone you admire, it must be limited only to that. You agree, the ideas resonate, not because they become your guru. Don't have gurus.
Is the aim of life to become your own guru?
Well, I would advise even against that. If I say to you, don't become a guru, you must have no guru, that includes you. You must not become a guru to yourself. Let me show you the dangers of this. You have people who admire the intellect. Now, this is one of the differences between indigenous knowledge and Western knowledge. Okay. Western knowledge foregrounds the mind, and therefore the intellect. Now, amongst us, you have very sad cases of people who not only worship the intellect, they are a sad case because they worship their own intellect. Now, why I say do not become a guru even to yourself. Once you become a guru to yourself, you become uncritical of what you think. And therefore, if you are not there yet, you are very close to worshiping your intellect.
But then, wouldn't that be self-actualization, to master yourself? If you're the guru of yourself, it means you're the master of.
Well, let's interrogate the idea of mastering yourself. Now, that idea itself, I understand what people mean when they talk about self-mastery. Now, you, the generic you, not to Mamia, you, one of the things you must accept about yourself is that your knowledge of self is incomplete and will never be complete. Your ancestors' knowledge of you is slightly better. Only God has full knowledge of who and what you are. Not even your ancestors have that. Because remember, when we talk about ancestors, we're talking about two things. Or I'm talking about two things. I'm talking about the historical fact that there were human beings who were here before us. The second thing I'm talking about is that these human beings are no longer here. they are spirit. If we accept that these human beings were created by God, then they pass on, they are spirit. Spirit itself is God's creation. This is why we are discouraged not to worship amadlozi or izinyanya or their ancestors. Because you can't worship that which is not God, that which is God's creation. In fact, sometimes you worship that which is less evolved than you. In some cases, we are more evolved than izinyanya zethu. In some cases, izinyanya zethu are less evolved than us. Some are not evolved at all.
What are you saying?
Am I causing you more trauma?
Yo, it's a lot of information.
Let's start here. So what I'm warning against is this thing of idealizing the ancestors.
Yeah.
This thing of idealizing izinyanya. That's another warning I'm making. Now, you die here. Let's say I have these powers. I give you a dirty look and you die because of that dirty look. The body dies. Your spirit will continue on its eternal journey. Okay? And we, the living, one day will come back to the idea of whether we're really the living. So we, the living, we look at you as Gogo Ntsiki. Isinyanya.
Yes.
So ndiya emsamo, ndiyaphahla
Yes.
phahlela ugogo Ntsiki umamiya. Ne? Now, umamiya comes in my dreams or whatever. I want this. What has happened to my things? Nyenze ntoni indlu yam? Nyenze ntoni imoto yam? Isibaya sam why sinje? Lungisani isibaya sam.
Okay.
Ndifuna ok, ndifuna nale. And when you watch carefully, umamiya esisinyanya is actually still very close to being human than being divine.
Yes.
You see? And you treat umamiya as such. You don't idolize umamiya. You recognize that umamiya is not as evolved as she should be. She is still too attached to izinto zasemhlabeni. And that's why she keeps on coming up, ayibuza ngento zakhe. Ngeenkomo zakhe, ngeegusha zakhe, imoto yam, this. And when you look at her demands are attached too much to the material. So which means if Apa is human life, your body dies. Over here, is the beginning of your eternal journey as spirit. And over there is the point at which you achieve the goal of reaching for your higher self. Over here, you're still early in your journey. You're still much closer to being human than being divine, for instance. And therefore, umamiya still has some journey to travel in her journey of evolution. In some cases, I'll give you an example. People celebrate izinto they should not celebrate. Ngogogo thile okanye umkhulu othile bathi, hey, umkhulu nolaka. Now, that umkhulu nolaka, anger, anger issues. And its issues. Just because umkhulu sisinyanya does not mean ukuba nolaka is a good thing, because ulaga is destructive. So umkhulu, because unolaga, can be destructive. And then umkhulu must be helped to cleanse himself of ulaga, because ulaga can be destructive. So that spirit needs to be cleansed of this thing that is not good. But do we celebrate it? Hey, umkhulu nolaga. It's not something we celebrate. We must help umkhulu, because spirit has this pathology of anger, and it must be cleansed of it so that umkhulu azoba sisinyanya esihle, cleansed of this black spot of anger. So that is why I always argue that the relationship between us, Nezinyanya, is a two-way relationship. They guide us, but we must also guide them. It's a two-way relationship. And then why we must guide them is because they do not know everything. They also do not have all the wisdom. Only God has all the wisdom. And now what if you are dealing with Nyanya that is not evolved? I'll give an example. I had to deal with Nyanya that has a very problematic relationship with women. Patriarchal to the core. You know, isinyanya esithi xa nindiphahlela ndoda ninganiphahleli nabafazi. Andiphahlelwa mna nabafazi. Isinyanya esitsho njalo. Now, if you idealize isinyanya, you won't see that isinyanya needs help. This isinyanya is still very close to being a man who was patriarchal, has not evolved. And you must help and guide isinyanya to evolve. So you must not idealize isinyanya. They are not God. They are not perfect. They don't know everything, and they do not have all the wisdom. They see further than us. They are wiser than us. They see deeper, but they are not God. And in some cases, we're dealing with nyanya that are not evolved or not as evolved as they should be, and we must help them evolve. And in some cases, in fact, in all cases, every day, one of the first things you must do is to pray to God for your ancestors. And so the point then I'm making is that we must not idealize izinyanya.
When we phahla, who are we speaking to?
Well, when it takes us to the question of Moya, spirit. Now, the way I look at spirit, spirit to me is an ocean. It's an ocean of consciousness. Obviously, an ocean consists of drops, and these drops are individual spirits. Some of these spirits which make up this ocean are human. Not all of them are human. So there are different kinds of spirits. So that's another thing we do. We deal with spirit as if all spirits have an origin in being human. Not all spirits are human. There are different kinds of spirits. So let's limit ourselves to these drops we call izinyanya. So the first thing to appreciate, you have an ocean. Spirit is, and that's why I talk about spirit, singular. So all of these spirits, human and others, are part of this ocean of consciousness I call spirit. So Tina Klasiphahla, we are communicating with these drops. Some of the drops are spirits that are in our lineage, or kokobetu. Others are not. In my case, for instance, Kandphahla, the phahla to those who are in my lineage. So I say, Nina bandizala ngokwegazi. And then I will name them. And then dithi Nina bandizala ngokomoya. Because there are spirits that walk with me that are not from my lineage, biologically. Some are not from this continent, are from other continents, and all of that. So xa siphahla generally to those who were in our lineage, umkhulu, ugogo, and so on. But mna xa ndiphahla, I also say, nina zinyanya zelilizwe. You see? And nina zinyanya zelilizwekazi. Nani nonke zinyanya naphina apho nikhoyo emhlabeni. So mna xa ndiphahla to izinyanya zakulomama, zakulotata, izinyanya zelilizwe, South Africa, izinyanya zelilizwekazi Africa, nezinyanya zonke wherever they are in the world. Because the way I experience my relationship, I have no doubt that some of the ancestors that walk with me are not from this continent or even this kind. So you must have that kind of broad understanding of her. Acknowledge all of them. Acknowledge izinyanya zakowenu, ezakulomama nakulotata. Acknowledge izinyanya zelilizwe. Nicinga uba le ANC niza kuyilungisa ningathethanga nezinyanya zelilizwe? Because as it is messing up, what they do is an affront to izinyanya zelilizwe. So kufuneka singengeze sithethe nezinyanya zelilizwe. But we must also sithethe nezinyanya ze-Afrika zelilizwekazi. Nazo zonke izinyanya naphina apho zikhoyo. And so you acknowledge and you embrace and uziphahlela zonke izinyanya. So you use a language that embraces all of them. And where you must be specific, uzakuba specific, uthi Radebe, Makulu, unamajala, you know. But never forget that you must embrace and acknowledge zonke ezizinyanya. So I talk then about this ocean of consciousness. And ezizinyanya about drops in this ocean of consciousness.
When you talk about acknowledgement, it makes me think of like if you go to an event and they acknowledge your name, that feeling you get that makes you. So that's what we are actually trying. That's the intention behind naming everyone, to be like, hey, we see you. What's it called in government circles? All protocol observed.
Observed. Yes.
So you were saying earlier on thing about attachment and detachment and freedom, and it made me think of culture, namasiko, nesintu sethu.
Yes.
So do you want to unpack?
Let me unpack it and start galento of being African. Ushaka kasenzanga khona uba wawungadibana naye, do you think why is that time in African? No. Uhintsa uba wawudibene naye ethafeni wayeza ukuthi I'm an African. When do we become African? Who names us?
The white gaze.
African. Who names us? Who named us? Who named us African? You see, we must ask those questions. So before we are too proud of being African, we must ask the question. In the first place, who named this continent Africa? Who named us? Why? When? When did we become African? So the idea of being African is socially constructed, and therefore it is not unproblematic. So in the process, enye into mami and Nance, those of us who are black and middle class, tina amaqoboka, amakumsha. Those of us who speak English.
The clever blacks.
Those of us who have become proficient in the grammar of whiteness, because in part that's what it is. Ukubali qobhoka, ukubali khumsha simply means you have become adept and proficient in the grammar of whiteness.
A deputy white.
Yes. You know? Sibacha kulento African spirituality. So now that I've problematized the idea of being African, I'll go further. I personally don't subscribe to the idea of African spirituality. I subscribe to the idea of spirituality, full stop. Not Africans. So I don't subscribe to the idea of Chinese spirituality or Indian spirituality or Xhosa spirituality or African spirituality. For me, there's just spirituality. Now, if we talk about African spirituality, for instance, what do? We take spirituality of a particular corner of Africa, of a particular place in Africa, and we pretend it is the spirituality of the entire continent. So in that sense, too, the idea of African spirituality doesn't make sense. Yes, there are things that are common amongst us on this continent when it comes to how we practice spirituality. But don't say spirituality as practiced and experienced by Abe Sotho is African spirituality. And while you say that, you can acknowledge, yes, that spirituality as practiced by Amaxhosa or Amazulu or Amavenda feeds into what is common about spirituality on the continent. But we must not brush the entire continent with the same spirituality, you know. So there is a need to understand sameness and difference, that which is common and that which is not common. And appreciating the differences enriches our understanding of what we call African spirituality. I was making the point that Tina Makumusha, Tina Makopoka, who have become adept at and proficient in the grammar of whiteness, we are new to what we call African spirituality. That's why I sing Othathekile. Because that's what we become. So Othathekile, because we're new.
Yeah.
So anything that smells like African spirituality or looks like African spirituality, we embrace as African spirituality. Ngoba siwothathekile.
Kucha internet sangomas.
That and more, you know. But siwothathekile because we are new. So we must start from the position of humility, of accepting that besiqhelile, and I'm using ukukhala ngesizulu to be distant from. Besiqhelile kumveli nqangi for a long time. And in many ways, kusasenjalo siqhelile kumveli nqangi. Besiqhelile edlozini. Now there's a process of some kind of reawakening, spiritual reawakening. But we must be humble. We must have the humility to accept that we are novices when it comes to African spirituality. Singamahanuka, that's close. When it comes to African spirituality. And that is why singothathekile. When the African spiritual wind blows that way, we follow it. And therefore it means anyone can become a guru in African spirituality because we're othathekile. And we're not critical about what we hear when it comes to what we call African spirituality. And so, the point you're raising about attachment, then we become attached to particular ideas of what it means to be spiritual. And we become attached to the idea of African spirituality without problematizing it, without thinking deeply about it, without thinking critically about it. Now, that we are religious or spiritual must never be an excuse for you to suspend thought.
Okay. So, because I think today we want to go deeper into spiritual and spirit. A question that is out there is the relationship between men and women. Gesintu. You know? We are seeing Hollywood love relationships. but they're not the same as real African relationships, even, you know? So can we unpack that also a little bit?
Yes, to the extent that there's any such thing as an African relationship. So that's another thing. One day we'll have to what's this thing called African relationships?
Yes.
There's no human being who was born in Africa. Not one. There is no human being who's born a Xhosa.
Yes.
There is no human being who's born white. There is no human being who's born black. All of these things are functions of social constructions. You become Xhosa. You become white. You become African. All these things are socially constructed. For instance, gender. We all accept, when I say to people, is gender a construct? They don't hesitate.
Yeah.
Then I say, is African identity a construct? Then they hesitate. Why? Because they've become attached to particular ideas of what it means to be an African. And then you will hear them saying things like being gay or lesbian is un-African, which is a hugely problematic notion.
Yep.
You see? Because it betrays a misunderstanding, first of all, of what it means to be African. To the extent that I buy into that, as I've already said, I don't. Now, you call me Gogo.
Yes. Yes.
But you know Izangoma, who are women, who are called Mkhulu.
Yes.
Now, strictly speaking, there's no such thing. I'm not Gogo. That woman, Osisangoma, is not Mkhulu either. Strictly speaking, there's no such thing.
Yes.
Because the spiritual realm is a genderless realm.
Yes.
It has no race. It has no gender. It has no tribe, it has no nation, it has no country, it has no continent. Spirit doesn't have these identities. So the spiritual realm is a non-gendered realm. Therefore, there is no Gogo, there is no Mkhulu in the spiritual realm. Now, of course, ugogo wakho Mamiya obhubhe ngo-1920 uyayazi ifoto yakhe. Ugogo will present herself to you in a manner that your limited human mind will recognize.
Yes.
Because if ugogo presents herself as she is a spirit, you won't recognize her. Your limited mind will not recognize her. So the fact that ugogo presents to me as a woman, spirit is meeting me halfway, so that my limited mind can recognize this spirit. Because if spirit presented itself to us as it is, we would not be able to recognize it. So this idea of men, women, and how men relate to women is socially constructed. But remember, Mami, Muna, if I'm patriarchal, now, of course, you will hear people saying patriarchy is not from Africa, and I agree. It's largely a function of Christian Calvinism.
Yes.
I agree with that.
Yes.
But that's what we became. We became Christian Calvinists. We became. So let's not deny
Yes.
that. Let's not deny
Yes.
that African
Yes.
men, black men, did become patriarchal. Let's not deny that. Even if our origins are not, that's what we've become. We've become patriarchal. And that is why, for instance, so today, because we don't have time, I will flag issues. I won't go deep into them. That is why, for instance, I struggle when I talk about God. I struggle to say he, Because God is not a man. God is not masculine. So that's why I will not say God, he. So this idea that God ngutata, I don't buy into that. God is not masculine. God is not a man. That's not the same as saying God does not have masculine qualities. Now remember, those qualities, it's not God who named them masculine. We did. So you have, before you are born, this bowl where, Namami, let's say you're about to be born, your spirit is about to unite with this body that it is going to spend life with here on earth. And there is this bowl in front of you. It is full of qualities that you will take with you. And those are the qualities that are going to define you as this human being who shares this life with this spirit. Some of these qualities are what we call masculine. Some of them are what we call feminine. But it is not God who named them as such. You first create a construct called gender. And then you put your hand in this bowl, you fish them out and say, oh, in terms of our definition, these are masculine.
And that's very Western, hey? Because we're not like that, eh?
You see? But we have become like that. You see? So we also need to be very humble. We are not much better than the Westerners. We have become what they have become to some extent, you know. Now, if we just looked at these qualities as human qualities, that what you regard as a masculine quality resides in your boy would not be an issue. Or that which you regard as masculine resides in your girl would not be a problem. Because, let's start with God. My belief is that God is a unity of what we call the masculine and the feminine. So God is a unity of the feminine divine and the masculine divine. God without the feminine is incomplete, and therefore is not God. God without the masculine is incomplete, and therefore is not God. But I wish we did not use these words, masculine and feminine, these qualities, because these are qualities. But because of the constructs we have created, these qualities, we have given them names, first of all. Remember, first of all, when you name something, you make it smaller than what it is. So when you reduce this quality that is complex and rich to a name, masculine, or to a name, feminine, you have reduced it. You have made it smaller. Why? Because our minds like to make things smaller so that they can be able to grasp them and grapple with them. You, Mami, you are a unity of the feminine and the masculine. In its broader sense, not in this narrow sense of the constructs we have created. Without the masculine, Mami, you are incomplete. Without the feminine, you are incomplete. The same applies to me. Without the feminine, I'm incomplete. Without the masculine, I'm incomplete. The same applies to the spirits of our ancestors. Without the feminine, they are incomplete. Without the masculine, they are incomplete. And therefore, what will happen because of what we have become? I will die, this body will die. I will take these notions, these patriarchal notions with me, and they become part of the next phase of my eternal life. And then, xa nindiphahlela, ndiza kuthi kuni, andiphahlelwa nabafazi mna. That's what I've taken to that realm. You see? Once it is in that realm, what do? You idealize it. You forget that it comes from the human. It's what humans have imposed on the spiritual. And now, just because sendukela kuqala hayi utata omkhulu umongameli uthi makangaphahlelwa nabafazi, because now you have given it a spiritual status because I'm not here, instead of saying utata umongameli, let's help him have a better understanding of the relationship between the feminine and the masculine. That's our job. He who refuses to guide his or her ancestors out of ignorance can be forgiven. He who knows that one of his or her jobs is to guide his ancestors, and therefore there's a two-way relationship. He is guided by the ancestors, and he has the responsibility to guide them on certain things, cannot be forgiven.
You know, there's something I've always been, when you speak about the evolution of the spirit, do you believe that a child is born, the spirit is born fully evolved, and then in the human body, it's trying to catch up and mature? Or do you think that...
And I like the words you use. You say, do you believe? You say, do you think? I love that, because we're not here to pretend that I know.
Right.
You see? I am sharing with you what I believe.
Yes.
You see? And I'm sharing with you what I think.
Your point of view of the elephant.
Yes.
Yes.
Not what I know. I
Yes.
don't know. Actually, I don't know. I share with you what I believe and what I think. And this is what I think, and this is what I believe. I believe that, Mamia, there was never a time when your spirit was not there. And so now you're alive, your spirit sharing his journey, this phase of his journey with this body. This body will die, and the life of the spirit will continue. And there will never be a time when the spirit does not exist. So there was never a time when your spirit did not exist. After the death of the body, there will never be a time when your spirit does not exist. So if you think of it that way, the question you ask about whether at the time of your birth, your spirit is fully formed.
Yes.
My answer is that when that spirit begins its life with this body, when you are born, remember that spirit is entering the next phase of its eternal life. And this eternal life is a life of growth, continuous growth, eternal growth. And what is this life about? What is the journey of the spirit about? The spirit is reaching for its higher self. That's what the eternal journey of the spirit is about. The spirit is constantly reaching for its higher self. But there are things that will militate against the spirit's progress.
Yes.
For instance, the example I gave about umkhulu ongekho.
Yes.
So it's a journey of evolution. The goal is you reach a state of consciousness that is a state of perfection, because the spirit has attained that goal. It is now at a place where it is at its highest self. You will never reach that. Because once you reach that, you're God. And you're not God. But we must still strive. Now that we know that the spirit is in a journey of reaching for its higher self, and we know that we are not God, we must still strive to reach that highest point.
So if spirit is our higher self, it means our...
No, it's not our higher self. Spirit is spirit.
Oh, okay.
But spirit is on a journey of reaching for its higher self. So your spirit right now is on that journey of reaching for its higher self. When this body dies, the spirit will continue to the next phase of the journey of reaching for its higher self. And this brings us back to the question of evolution. That is why I can argue that some spirits are less evolved than we are. Because in the work you do because of your consciousness, you may find that your spirit, your essence, becomes more evolved than utatomkhulu Mahashe. And there's nothing wrong sometimes with acknowledging that, with acknowledging ukuthi utatomkhulu Mahashe needs help. We need to perform rituals to help utatomkhulu Mahashe who is not evolved, you know? Because if we do not do that, once we become aware, I don't blame you if you're still at a stage where you idealize Amadlozi, his nyanya, and so on, as perfect beings, which is not true. They are not perfect beings. Only God is perfect. In fact, some of them are more imperfect than us. We'll also fall into the trap of thinking, onke Amadlozi mahle. Amanye mabi. You see? So some of his nyanya in your lineage are not Amadlozi mahle, mabi. Because the work that needs to happen for them to reach for their higher selves maybe is still in its early stages or has not begun, or that spirit is refusing. Because one of the things that spirit carries is the ego, pride, lack of humility. Some of his nyanyas are like that. Abakwazi ukuzithoba. They lack humility, they are proud, they are egotistical. And that is why when people come to me, I will tell them, all we're dealing here with is a temperamental, egotistical spirit that lacks humility, and it must be treated as such. And treating it as such means we must start a journey of helping it to become better than what it is. Because all the help you seek, you're not going to get from this spirit that is not evolved. So it is in your interest to help that spirit with its evolution.
How do we protect ourselves from Amadlozi Amabi? I mean, like, if I've got like an uncle who doesn't like me and he passes and I'm like, oh my God, this person's gonna mess up my stuff now.
Well, uGobela uthi kum one day, Twasa, you must respect all beliefs. So what I'm about to say, I'm not saying it out of disrespect for a particular religion. What I love about what I believe, some people will call it African spirituality. What I love about it is that when your body dies, your spirit is not condemned to eternal damnation. Eternally. That's not what I believe. That's not what we call African spirituality is about. And also that informs our idea of God. My idea of God is not the temperamental God of the Old Testament. That's not the God I worship. Therefore, what I believe is that while your body is still alive, and when your body dies and your spirit continues with this life, there is always an opportunity for redemption. So, umalume, as Ubusumuzingande, I'm sure you've heard about him, of the Jenny Kwantu, likes talking about umalume boy. So, umalume, how do you know that umalume did not get redemption a second before he died? There's always an opportunity for redemption. And it can happen a second before. So what you remember of Malume may be wrong. Because maybe Malume sought and received his redemption a second before he died. And now he is busy on the journey of seeking more redemption for his soul, or for his spirit. So I don't believe in this idea that was akucha esiwogweni eternal. I believe that in his eternal journey, there is an eternity of opportunities for your spirit to seek redemption and receive it once it has done the work that it needs to do to get redemption.
Okay, fine. But I was more asking, Uti, can the spirit cause havoc for us if he did not get redemption?
No, not can. Spirits are causing havoc right now. So it's not a question of can.
Oh my
Right
God.
now, spirits are causing havoc. And remember, some of the spirits are causing, take our politics. Our politics is dirty,
Yeah.
spiritually unclean. Our politics needs deep spiritual cleansing. Why?
Yeah.
Because those we call our leaders across the board, the things they do to get and keep powers in dark.
Yes.
They invoke dark spirits. And they do dark things to win power and to keep it. So those spirits, partly our politics is this messy because our leaders basifakele isinyama. Our leaders basifakele isichitho. South Africa ifakelwe isichitho because of what our leaders do. Ukuthwala, ukuthwebula amadlozi, ukucupha amadlozi. All these things they do. Others do it for money. People get positions, political and in business and otherwise. Why? Abanye bathenga nedlozi, nithi umuntu yisangoma. Whereas uthenge idlozi, uthwebula idlozi. This is not isangoma. Uthwebula idlozi. That is happening in our politics. That is happening in show business. That is happening in business. It's happening in every facet of our lives. And what causes me deep pain is the number of young people who have committed themselves to winning power, money, influence by invoking these dark spirits. The number of young people, abathwele, abathwebula amadlozi, is disturbing, Mami. So no, the question is not can spirit. They are causing havoc now, these spirits. And some of them, we have created them because we have commanded the power of the dark side. Now, some people say, no, Gogo is creating binaries of dark and light. Now, I always laugh when people think they are woke, né? And they use words like non-binary because they don't want binaries. What is the opposite of non-binary? It's binary. What's the relationship between non-binary and binary? That's a binary. So I always laugh when people talk against a binary by creating a binary. So this binary is real.
Yeah.
Ubumnyama bukhona. Ukukhanya kukhona. But ubumnyama right now buphakeme. To answer your question more directly. Ubumnyama buphakeme. But it is not with a sense of despair that we must respond to that. Because the presence of ubumnyama is evidence of light.
Yes.
Ubumnyama buphakama to meet ukhanya. and try to squash it. So the presence of light, of darkness, is evidence of light. And that's what should give us hope.
Thokoza Gogo.
Thokozani, Mami.
Amaku, I really enjoyed your sharing today. Thank you for taking the time, as usual. I don't think this is the last time you come here.
Tamaku.
Thank you so much. And I hope you set up your YouTube thing so sometimes we can talk to you more regularly on the live
When
stream.
I'm guided as such, I will.
Amaku,
I hope I caused less trauma today.
It's so perfect today. I'm so okay, there we go. There's my episode. Thank you. Thank you, Moya Rights, for tuning in. Guys, you know all the details that you need are on screen. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe so that the family can keep growing. Thank you so much for all your love and support. See you again next time.
Who are you when all you were has been diluted by lies and white lines cancelling out all that which has been written of your history? Why do you look at yourself as a mystery? Doesn't the sun shine because you open your eyes? Doesn't the moon stay situated within the same stars your DNA sparkles off? Your spirit knows that surely corner into e off. Buza umoya so you may return to being well off. Because spiritually you are rich, yet your ancestors cry because you are out of reach. But yours is to command all elements while God takes inspiration from the very mirror she looked at to become. Remember who you are and never finish just when they think that with you they are done.